Thank you, that's all.
It's now clear to the Commission that Beaujolais and Thompson's last-minute attempts to stop the launch were overruled, and that NASA's senior management made the final decision. Feynman is convinced that the engineers were right and that the cold is at the root of the problem. Following the New York Times revelations, the Commission is big news.
Professor, can I have a minute?
Well, I really have to go.
It is February 11th, 1986, 2 weeks after the Challenger explosion. In the full glare of the media, Feynman begins hatching a plan to put NASA itself on trial.
Could I have a glass of iced water, please?
Of course, look at that right.
I would like to call the Commission to order, please.
Morton Thiokol provides segments of the rubber O-ring for the commissioners to inspect.
Our request that we were able to discuss.
It is NASA's manager of the solid rocket booster projects, Larry Malloy's turn to testify.
With officials from NASA.
You have a look in your eye that suggests to me you're up to something.
Oh, I have a little experiment in mind.
With the media watching closely, the Nobel Prize winner is about to use a high school experiment to demonstrate the fatal design flaw.
This rubber thing that is put in, the so-called O-ring, that is supposed to expand to make contact with the metal underneath so that it makes a seal. Is that the idea?
Yes, sir.
And if it weren't there, if it weren't in contact at all and there was no seal at all, that would be a leak.
Yes. You will always push the putty through because the motor pressure is 900 psi nominally and 1,000 psi at max. And that putty will sustain about 200 psi.
Well, now, we couldn't put instead of this some sort of material like lead that when you squash it, it stays? It has to be that it expands back because there is a little bit of play in this joint and it has to be able to come back. I mean, it's a rubber material so that it comes back when you move a little and it stays in contact. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
This seal, in order to work correctly, it must be rubber, not something like lead.
Yes, sir.
Because when the seal moves a little bit, when there is vibration and pressures, it would lift the lead away, which the rubber expands in place?
Yes, sir.
So it's important that it have this property of expansion.
That is correct.
If this material weren't resilient for, say, a second or two, that would be enough to be a very dangerous situation.
Yes, sir.
I took this stuff that I got out of your seal and I put it in ice water. And I discovered that when you put some pressure on it for a while and then undo it, it doesn't stretch back. It stays the same dimension. In other words, for a few seconds at least, there is no resilience in this particular material when it's at a temperature of 32 degrees. I believe that has some significance for our problem.
It is a memorable moment. Feynman's simple experiment has made the technical problem easy for everyone to understand. But what is not easy to comprehend is why NASA allowed Challenger to launch. They knew the danger, took a calculated risk, and lost. It's the night before launch, and despite the desperate efforts of Roger Beaujolais and Arnie Thompson, Challenger's fate has been sealed. In Utah, there is despair. In Florida, there is only anticipation. At the Kennedy Space Center, Krista McAuliffe says her last goodbye to her husband.
And make sure Caroline is ready for the noise.
Yeah, no, she knows what to expect. I've walked it through with her.
Okay.
It's the third time I said goodbye. Yeah, no, it's getting cold. Go inside.
Did I tell you I love you?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Have a great flight.
On the launch pad, the temperature is dropping fast. Commander Scobie and the rest of the astronauts don't think they will launch the next morning.
It had been cool, but then it was frigid that night before the actual launch, extremely cold. So Dick told me then that they would not be flying the next day, to go back and tell all the family members and friends who'd come to go on home that they wouldn't be flying, and they might not be flying for several days. And it was a kind of a matter of fact that they wouldn't be. I knew I would be staying and seeing him again.
The temperature plummets. The astronauts pass the time thinking that tomorrow will be another scrub. Out on the launch pad, icicles as long as 18 inches are forming on the shuttle. Despite the low temperatures, Challenger will launch the next morning. The temperature is 24 degrees. But when Dick Scobie phones his wife, she's astonished to hear that Challenger is go for launch.
He was not his usual self. He was not himself. It was not, hey, great, see you later, like he often did. It was anxiety in his voice. And so long, babe, I'll see you in a week. Those were his last words to me.
As day breaks, the temperature rises to 30 degrees. NASA still has 4 hours to launch. It's a sunny morning, so they delay another 2 hours to let the temperature rise even further.
Will Mommy's spaceship make a lot of noise? I know. Just put your hands over your ears like this. See? You can't hear anything now, right?
What's she doing? Let's go.
Flight crew now. Commander Dick Scobie, followed by Mission Specialist Dee Resnick, Ron McNair, pilot Mike Smith, followed by Krista McCullough, Feature in Space, Ellison Onizuka, and payload specialist Greg Jarvis. Big smiles today.
OTC, PLT radio check.
PLT, this OTC, I copy you 5 by, how many?
Okay, got you on clear. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. We're ready today.
Slowly.
The teacher observer, Krista McAuliffe, has been handed an apple by the closeout crew.
Good morning, Krista. Hope we go today.
Good morning, hope so too. OTC, PS2 radio check.
Krista's parents and the rest of the astronauts' families are at the Kennedy Space Center to watch the launch.
Solid rockets.